Hi guys, this is Raju Rahman from Tectonic. In 2019 I reviewed the Looc from IMOU and I pretty much liked everything about it. It still serves me really well to this day. So when IMOU wanted me to review the Bullet 2E, it was only natural for me to say yes. Now I should mention there is a slight caveat to this review. Unlike the Looc, the Bullet 2E doesn't use a USB type power cord, which meant I wasn't able to extend the power cord and place the Bullet 2E exactly where I wanted it. Unlike the IMOU Looc, which I've set up permanently, I've had to use a power plug extension and therefore I wasn't able to run the Bullet 2E continuously, but that was in no way a significant hindrance to this review. So if you're interested, please keep watching. Here's the retail box for the Bullet 2E, nice and bright in orange to match the IMOU branding. So let's get this thing open. The first thing inside the box is the quick start guide, legal and regulatory information. Seriously, who the hell even reads that? Next you have the positioning map or template for mounting the camera to the wall. You'll need this, so make sure you don't lose it. Here's the 3-pin UK adapter, you've got a screw package, waterproof connector, and finally the last but most important thing, the camera itself. Holding this camera, it certainly looks premium and well made. It doesn't indeed feel very solid. That's reassuring considering it's designed to be used outdoors. And on that note, it goes without saying the camera is weatherproof, rated IP67 for those who want to know. Here you have the power connector, and you've also got an Ethernet port to connect it directly to your router and avoid Wi-Fi altogether. Legend has it, and by that I mean some reviewers have said you can power the camera over PoE, though I couldn't find any information about that on IMOU's website. Neither was I able to test it as I don't have a PoE switch to test it with. Anyways, the power cord does fit in this groove at the bottom, so the camera will sit flush on installation. You've also got a pretty sturdy knuckle joint, so you can angle the camera the way you want. You've got a QR code here on the bottom. It makes it really easy to set up. I'll demonstrate that a little later on in this review. You've also got two screws here. Taking them off and removing the cover reveals the micro SD card slot. Next to that you have the reset button. Pressing and holding that down for 10 seconds will factory reset the camera itself. A little dumbfounded as to why the reset button is so accessible. It would have been better if it was inside or under the cover next to the micro SD card slot, but to be honest, if someone wanted to do something malicious, it would probably be easier to just pull the cord off, so in that sense it's not a huge deal. You've got two Wi-Fi antennas on the camera, one on each side. You've also got two spotlights. That's one more than the IMOU Looc. And of course you have the lens itself, the LED indicator and mic on the front too. Now let's get to setting this camera up. Obviously make sure you plug in the camera to the power socket first. Download the IMOU app if you haven't done so already. You'll need to sign up for an account. Tap the orange plus icon on the top right corner, then tap scan QR code. Allow permissions if it's requested, and then scan the QR code on the camera. When it shows your device on screen, tap next. At this point, wait for the LED on the camera to slowly flash green. Once you've confirmed that's the case, tap next. Tap connect to the camera. Next, you'll have to select your wireless SSID. Remember, this device only supports 2.4 GHz bands, just like most other smart devices. If you can't see your SSID, you'll need to enable the 2.4 GHz band on your wireless router. Enter your password for your Wi-Fi, then press next. This part takes about 2 minutes, so whilst we wait for that to complete, let's go through the specs. As always, all the specs are on the screen, so feel free to pause if you want, but the main specifications are as follows. The Bullet 2E camera has 1080p resolution with H.265, human detection so it can distinguish between moving branches and a human being for accurate movement detection, a built-in microphone, there's 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi and Ethernet, there's a built-in spotlight and night vision, it's IP67 weatherproof, it's got a micro SD card slot, so if you don't want to pay for cloud storage, which is also of course another option. So the setup is nearly complete. You just have to set the time zone you're in and of course where you plan to place the camera. I can't see garden as an option, but since the garden is at the back of the house, I guess I'll go with backyard. Finally, press done. You'll now be able to activate 7 days of cloud storage as a free trial. I suggest you give that a go, but obviously I'm just gonna skip that for now. As you can see, my IMOU Looc feed is at the bottom here, but let's check out the 2E because that's what this video is about. If prompted to update the firmware, you should do that straight away. Anyways, let's go through the main features of this camera. You get high resolution video, that's 1080p full HD both day and night. So the footage you're watching now was recorded via the Bullet 2E. Of course, the audio that you're listening to was also recorded via the Bullet 2E. And while we're on the subject of audio, you should know that the Bullet 2E doesn't support two-way communication, so you can only hear the audio from one side, you can't talk back. And that could be a deal breaker for a lot of people. For me, it's not really a feature I tend to use, but if it's something that's important to you, then this camera might not be the one that you want. But otherwise, to be honest, you don't really need that feature unless you really want to talk to the person that you're watching. The footage was recorded while it was very sunny around midday, and in my opinion it's probably the most challenging situation for this camera to be in when you have very harsh sunlight. Dynamic range isn't very good, so it does struggle with very bright areas and overexposes more than I'd like it to. But let's move on to some footage recorded in the afternoon. Apologies for the slight change in the camera angle. As I mentioned in the intro, I haven't permanently installed this camera and only put it on when I'm testing it. So in situations where you don't have harsh sunlight, that's where this camera shines. You can see overall it's capturing a lot of detail. While I'm at the furthest point in my garden, although the text on my shirt might not be legible, you can definitely recognize my face, which is very important. Let me know what you guys think of the quality in the comment section below. Moving on to nighttime footage, and bear in mind it was raining at the time. In color night vision mode, the footage is grainy and pretty dull. You can't even see my face. You could put it into infrared night vision mode. I'm not even going to bother showing you that, as you probably already know what that looks like. If you don't, check out my review of the IMOU Looc. What I want to show you is what happens when you enable bright color night vision mode. Both spotlights turn on, it lights up the whole garden. The footage is clear and detailed. It's surprising how well it works. When it comes to watching a video feed, lag or the lack of it is very important. I only experience milliseconds of lag, which is absolutely amazing, but your experience might differ. I use mesh Wi-Fi and have very good coverage all around the property. So here in this test, you can see I've got a stopwatch running on the Sony Xperia 1 on the left with the Bullet 2E pointing towards it. On the right, I've got the Galaxy Z Fold 2 playing the feed itself. And if you compare the time elapsed on both, the feed is only a few milliseconds behind. So if you have good Wi-Fi coverage, you won't have any noticeable lag whatsoever. But some reviewers have talked about experiencing more than 10 seconds of delay, which isn't great, but this will of course depend on your Wi-Fi coverage. This camera works with both Alexa and Google Home. Simply asking my Nest Hub to show me the test camera starts the feed, which is absolutely great. You won't be able to view the feed from the Google Home app itself, but it does work with Chromecast enabled devices very well. Now let's go through the IMOU app itself. Opening the app reveals all your connected IMOU cameras. It will show you thumbnails, but bear in mind it's not live. Pressing play on one of the cameras will load the feed for that respective camera. In the screen you can take a quick snapshot. You can record a clip outside of the continuous recording that occurs anyway. You can turn the spotlight on, although if you don't have bright color night vision mode enabled, the spotlight will just flash rather than continuously light up the area. In the app you can also view your event history. Navigating the timeline can be a bit tricky, so it's best to zoom in as much as you can. It does make it a little easier doing so. I like how you're shown thumbnails at the bottom for all the events, so you can quickly go to the one you want. It's definitely the best and the easiest way to find the event you want rather than manually moving around the timeline. If we go into settings for the camera, you can turn on notifications, enable motion detection as well as human detection, and even set an activity zone. You can also activate cloud storage from here if you haven't already done so. You can try it out for 7 days if you want without entering any card details, so that makes it really easy. You've got an option to format your micro SD card, and of course various other options like activating the spotlight on movement detection. You can also select 4 different night vision modes. Bright color night vision is my favorite of all of them and what I showed you guys earlier. Under more settings you can rotate the image if you've placed the camera upside down, and you can play around with the date and time among other things. To conclude, there's only 2 negatives I can find for this camera. Firstly, there's no two-way communication, although it's not a deal breaker. Considering it was in the IMOU Looc, why it was excluded from this camera baffles me. Secondly, the 2E doesn't perform very well in bright conditions, but other than that, this is still a very good camera. The overall video quality is great. Bright color night vision mode is probably the star of the show. It works really well and captures lots of detail even when it's really dark. I like that you're not forced into paying for cloud storage and you can actually use your own micro SD card. It's something the more expensive, well-known security cameras don't offer, and price-wise it's relatively cheap compared to those more well-known cameras. At the time of publishing this review, the camera costs only 60 quid, but you can get 20% off that by using the code Tectonic on Amazon. If you're interested, I'll place links to purchase the IMOU Bullet 2E in the description below. This has been Raju Rahman from Tectonic. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and it helped you, please subscribe and like. That would really help me out. And don't forget to check out these other videos too.